What no one saw. My private war while smiling in public. They said I had the perfect smile. The kind that made people feel safe, seen, loved. In photos, I looked happy, confident. On the outside, I was the one everyone leaned on. But behind that smile, I was at war. Not the kind you can explain in a status update. Not the kind that shows up in x-rays or bank statements. It was the kind of war that's invisible until it breaks you. You see, every day I put on a mask. A mask that said, I'm okay. A mask that said, I'm strong. A mask that said, I don't need help. And no one saw past it. Not because they didn't care, but because I didn't let them. This is my story. Not the one I told the world, but the one I lived in silence. The perfect mask. The first time I learned to smile through pain was in childhood. I grew up in a place where emotions were inconvenient. Crying was weakness. Sadness was ungratefulness. And asking for help, that was betrayal. So, I became good at hiding. I learned to laugh at jokes that hurt, to nod during moments that crushed me, to cheer others on when I was barely holding myself together. In school, I was the friendly one, the happy kid that made everyone laugh. But when I got home, I sat with shadows no one saw. My parents had their own struggles. They were fighting wars, too. Only theirs were loud. Mine was silent. I began to believe my pain didn't matter. That if I could make others feel better, maybe I could feel better too. And so began the performance. In teenage years, the stakes got higher. Grades, friendships, heartbreaks, identity. The world became heavier. But my smile became wider. I was the friend everyone called at 2 a.m. The one with advice. The one who always seemed okay. And the scariest part? Even I started believing the mask. Cracks in the surface. But no mask lasts forever. The first cracks appear when I started waking up tired. Not just physically, but soul tired. I didn't look forward to anything. Food lost its taste. Conversations lost their meaning. Laughter felt like an echo of something I once knew. I blamed it on burnout. Or maybe just growing up. Everyone's tired, right? But deep down I knew this was something else. I started canceling plans, something I never used to do. And when people asked, I smiled and said, just resting. But I wasn't resting. I was unraveling. I cried in bathrooms. I zoned out in meetings. I stared at walls for hours. I was surrounded by people, but alone. Still I smiled. Because the idea of saying, I'm not okay felt like betrayal. Like I disappoint people. Like I let someone down. Even when I had panic attacks, I hid them. I learned to hold my breath just long enough. To wipe my tears before stepping out. To say, all good with a steady voice. No one suspected a thing. That's the thing about smiling in public. It's the perfect disguise. The hidden war. You don't need bombs to have a war. Sometimes it's a war against your own mind. My enemy wore no uniform. It had no name I could say out loud without shame. But it showed up everywhere. At 3 a.m., whispering failures into my ears. At work, making me feel like a fraud. At parties, reminding me how alone I truly felt. I couldn't focus. I couldn't rest. I couldn't breathe without effort. I didn't want to die, but I didn't know how to live either. I Googled things like, why do I feel empty? How to stop overthinking everything. Signs of depression when you're high functioning. I took personality quizzes just to feel seen. I watched YouTube videos about trauma and healing. And when they made me cry, I told myself I was just tired. I started journaling, but even my journal felt like a lie. Because I was too afraid to write the truth. What if someone found it? What if I saw myself for what I truly was? Broken? But I wasn't broken. I was battling. And the hardest part? No one knew. Because I made sure they didn't. The loneliness of strength. There's a strange loneliness that comes from being the strong one. People think you're invincible. They come to you with their wounds. But never ask if you're bleeding too. You start to believe asking for help makes you a burden. That your pain is too heavy to share. That no one would understand anyway. So you smile. You answer, I'm good, when your chest feels hollow. You say just tired when your thoughts are screaming. You give when you're empty. You pour from a cracked glass, hoping no one notices the leaks. And the world keeps clapping for you. They say, you're so mature. I admire your strength. You're always so positive. And inside you scream, I'm drowning. Can't anyone see? But no one sees. Because you train them not to. turning points and meltdowns. Then came a breakdown. It wasn't loud. It didn't happen on a stage or in public. It was quiet. So quiet, it scared me. I woke up one morning and couldn't move. Not physically, emotionally. My body felt like stone. My mind like fog. I stared at my ceiling for hours. Phone buzzing. Messages piling. Life waiting. But I couldn't get up. I cried, not the pretty kind, but the gut-wrenching, uncontrollable sobs. And for the first time, I didn't hide. I texted one person, just one, and said, "I think I'm not okay." That message changed everything. It wasn't a fix. It didn't solve the years of silent suffering, but it cracked open a door I had sealed shut. I started therapy. At first, I was scared. I didn't want to revisit the pain I worked so hard to bury. But healing doesn't come from hiding. I learned to name my emotions, to recognize patterns, to forgive myself. I learned that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage. And slowly, the war quieted. Not ended, but quieted. The path to healing. Healing is not a straight line. It's not a movie montage with sad music and a happy ending. It's messy. It's slow. It's 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. But it's worth it. I learned to sit with my feelings, to journal honestly, to say, I'm not okay without shame. I found people who didn't flinch when I cried, who held space instead of offering solutions. I found ways to care for myself. Nature walks, breath work, music that made me feel, writing letters I never sent. And perhaps most importantly, I started speaking my truth. I began telling my story, at first in whispers, then louder, not to gain sympathy, but to say to anyone else out there, you are not alone. Your smile may be hiding a storm, but there's a lighthouse waiting. You don't have to pretend anymore. What I want you to know, if you made it this far, thank you. This wasn't easy to share. It still isn't. But here's what I want you to know. There are people in your life right now, smiling, laughing, checking in, who are fighting private wars. Don't wait for them to fall apart before you ask, are you really okay? And if you're the one fighting, I see you. I hear you. I believe in your strength. Not the fake smile, but the strength it takes to stay alive when everything inside you hurts. You're not weak for struggling. You're not broken because you cry. You're not alone. This was my private war. And now, it's no longer a secret.